from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Pushing into harvest, can late season heat speed maturity?
I'm Michelle Rook here at Husker Harvest Days. We'll look at crop progress here in Nebraska and what that might mean for grain drying. That's coming up today on AgDay.
Secretary Perdue tours the hurricane-hit South. In agribusiness, waking up wheat markets.
A lot of things affect the price of wheat, not only from the U.S. standpoint, but certainly from the international standpoint as far as the value of the dollar.
It's price expectations for our dairy report and a crop of a lifetime. Now just a memory for this Texan following Hurricane Harvey.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Nebraska farmers have been a bit spoiled the past few harvest seasons because little grain had to be dried. But that may be changing this year. In some areas of the state, corn maturity is lagging. Michelle Rook reports on the variability in the Nebraska crop.
Weather was more favorable for crop development here in Nebraska during the week of Husker Harvest Days, but generally growing degree days have been running behind, which may mean a bit more grain drying for farmers this fall. It started last spring with problems during the planting season.
Well, this year seems to be a little behind normal. We had a really wet spring here in Nebraska. The northeast part of the state really struggled getting the crop into the field and getting it emerged. We had a lot of replant scenarios coming in this year.
Agronomist Kevin Keller says add to that the huge variability in the crop this year and the lack of late season heat, which has also slowed development.
If you look back to August and September, we've been pretty mild with our temperatures. We just haven't seen the crop mature and progress like it normally has in the last few years. I would say we're probably about at least a week to maybe 2 weeks off in some areas.
So without some help from Mother Nature, he says farmers may have to turn on their grain dryers this fall after several seasons of being idle.
If it doesn't stay warm and it cools back off to some more mild temperatures, I would anticipate a little bit of drying.
As a result, there was more interest in grain drying systems at Husker Harvest Days, as farmers can dry on the farm for around a penny a point, which is less than commercial drying.
If he's going to go to the elevator and pay 5 or 6 cents a point to dry, and he's got 5 or 6 points to take out, that's going to cost 25 to 30 cents a bushel. So it is quite a bit savings in having your own dryer.
But even on-farm dryers may cost a little more to run this fall, with the recent hurricanes driving up energy prices.
This year prices are a little higher. Gasoline's moved up, diesel's moved up, propane tends to move with it, and supplies are perhaps a little tighter than they've been in past years.
Some options farmers are looking at to avoid drying costs include field drying, air drying in the bin, or delivering wet corn.
One of the things you can do is pick up the opportunity for some wet corn contracts. Some of these are offered through some of the elevators, some of these are offered through some of the ethanol plants.
Some of them have gotten new feedlots in there, and there they can utilize wet corn, which is good. So it's still going to be a challenge to get corn dry, and we may just have to wait till it dries in the field.
Still, farmers are hoping Mother Nature will cooperate and they can avoid this added cost in a tight margin environment.
It takes a lot of money to dry corn, and with the price of commodities right now, we don't have a lot of money to spend on something like that. It's an expense that we really don't need right now.
In Grand Island, Nebraska, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Our partners at Pro Farmer are projecting the Nebraska corn crop at nearly 181 bushels an acre this year. The Nebraska corn crop, like the rest of the Midwest, is struggling to finish. USDA's crop progress report showing Nebraska corn 6 points behind the 5-year average in maturity. Minnesota's 23 points behind. Illinois 20 points back. Overall, just a third of the crop is mature. That's 13 points behind the 5-year average. Corn harvest, it's still in the single digits at 7%. 4 points behind that 5-year average. Now the soybean condition dropping a point from last week, 59% rated good to excellent. Harvest just starting in the Midwest. Overall, soy harvest is at 4%. And winter wheat planting, it's lagging a bit. 13% is now seeded, 2 points behind the 5-year average. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue is traveling the states hard hit by hurricanes the past 3 weeks. On Monday, he met with Florida's Ag Commissioner. While assessing the damage to citrus and vegetable crops, the Ag Secretary said people of Ag are used to hard work, investing sweat and capital. They will recover and USDA will help. Purdue met with Florida citrus producers, took an aerial tour of citrus country. He also talked with vegetable, dairy, and sugar producers. Purdue says USDA will speed up help and ask Congress for additional aid. As AgDay reported last week, Hurricane Irma was just the latest assault on the Florida citrus industry. Growers have been battling against citrus greening for 2 decades now and have seen orange production drop 70% during that time. Secretary Perdue also visiting his home state of Georgia with a pecan crop that was viciously attacked by Irma. Early estimates put the crop losses at 30%. The University of Georgia Extension says the storm was the most damaging wind ever seen by the Georgia pecan industry. UGA says the storm brought damage to virtually every pecan orchard in the state, significantly weakening what was a strong 2017 pecan crop. Now, the most damage was sustained to orchards near Valdosta, where some growers reported thousands of trees on the ground. Purdue will also be in Texas Thursday and Friday to assess crop damage from Harvey. Now, as we've reported, cotton damage was extensive in the counties where the storm made landfall. We'll hear from one grower later on AgDay. Damage from Hurricane Harvey is still being tabulated. However, new reports out of Kansas that hard red winter wheat is once again headed for Gulf Coast ports. Railroad tracks suffering damage in the storm. Rail lines have now been inspected and repaired. Terminals are resuming shipments of wheat to destinations abroad. From Reuters, new talk around NAFTA, including a possible Mexican counterproposal targeting pork. Mexican negotiators saying that if the U.S. pushes forward on in-season protection for U.S. produce, limiting imports from Mexico, then Mexico may set its own limitations, including possible volume limits on pork. The next round of renegotiations on the 20-year-old trade treaty begin later this week in Canada. Mike Hoffman's back again today. He has our first look at farm country weather and crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Thanks, Clinton. In Cheyenne County, Nebraska, a farmer telling AgWeb that wheat planting has started. They're hoping for some rain to get stands up. This farmer says it's been dry, only a little more than 6 inches of rain since January. And Frank McGarty of Mississippi County, Arkansas, tweeted out this photo. No, those tires aren't bald. They're just caked in mud during rice harvest. Statewide, more than half of the crop is cut, which is pretty much on target. And taking a look at the weather map, you can see Jose off the East Coast, a couple of systems coming across the lower 48. We'll check out the forecast for you, but first here are some hometown temps.
Deciding whether to sell your old equipment? Well, Machinery Pete's Pick of the Week lets you stay informed on current market prices, allowing you to set the best possible price for your equipment. Text Pete6 to 31313 to get started.
When we come back, we'll talk about the wheat market and why Jim Bauer thinks it may be a sleeper for 2018. And later, it didn't take long for Hurricane Harvey to wipe out some of the best cotton these Texas growers ever raised. Their story from the heart of the storm today on In the Country. Here at the Agribusiness Desk with me today, Jim Bauer, Bauer Trading. Jim, as we talk about some of these markets, you've been focused a little bit on the wheat market, which we haven't talked a whole lot about here lately.
Yes, that's kind of a sleeper market. You don't get much chatter or market talk about wheat because it's been kind of on the back burner compared to corn, soybeans, soy oil,
sure,
and the stock market.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
But I think, you know, looking way out ahead, I think the worst is behind us now. You know, wheat is a very, very globally priced commodity. And a lot of things affect the price of wheat, not only from a U.S. standpoint, but certainly from an international standpoint as far as the value of the dollar, supply, demand, exports, and so forth. But I think wheat, when you look at it and step back from it from a global standpoint, and I underline the word global, it looks to me like we've put in some significant market action enough to start warrant being pretty aggressive, maybe buying some wheat and holding it out into 2018.
Okay.
Maybe even 2019 as long as it's risk capital. But keep in mind, Australia and Argentina, two of the world's major wheat exporters, are having significant problems, particularly Australia. And of course, they provide wheat for China, and that could be a good market that we might be able to pick up a piece of. Now, the other thing is, from a U.S. standpoint, it looks to me like we should draw acres down again.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you.
Because because there's other alternatives. There's corn, there's soybeans, there's chickpeas, there's lentils, there's sorghum, there's milo.
Mm-hmm.
When you get wheat down in the 350 cash level or lower, there's no money there.
Right.
The market's going to force them to make a decision. So usually when that happens, that's kind of the start of the turn. So whether we can get a big up move, I don't know. But I think the worst is behind us. So I'm taking a much more cautious approach than normal because it's been such bad market action. But I think things are happening underneath the surface to make things better down the road, and we're watching it very, very closely.
And I think the folks that are putting wheat in right now might like to hear that. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for being here. We'll be back with more AgDay in just a minute.
For a free 2-week trial to Jim's daily global market letter, call Bauer Trading toll free at 1-800-533-8045.
Unlock the power of ag technology this December in Indianapolis at the first ever Ag Tech Expo. Learn all about it at farmjournalagtech.com.
Ag Day weather. Brought to you by Credenz soybean seed from Bayer.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman watching another hurricane approach the United States, but you don't think this one's going to be quite as big as the last couple?
No, definitely not. This one is coming into chillier water than normal off the northeast coast, and so Jose really should weaken to a tropical storm, which would be more like a nor'easter for you folks in the northeast. But at least it is going to move after being on the map for a week and a half to 2 weeks out in the Atlantic. It's finally going to move off to the north and eventually weaken, but it is going to cause a lot of rain and some decent winds along the northeast coast. Weak little system along a warm front coming through the eastern Ohio Valley. As you can see, that will cause some showers and perhaps thunder showers. Parts of the Great Lakes into the Ohio and Tennessee valleys should be mainly scattered. You can see even by this afternoon, and not a whole lot on the map. Pretty strong storm system in southern Canada. We'll be bringing in another strong cold front into the northern plains as we head into the morning hours tomorrow. High pressure continues to dominate along the Gulf Coast, so very little going on in that part of the country. Another system coming in out west, as you can see, as we head through the day tomorrow. Some more rain and mountain snows. Checking out the rainfall estimate over the past 24 hours, you can see the amounts. Some areas have been getting a ½ inch to an inch across the upper Mississippi Valley into parts of Illinois and Indiana. Adding in the next 36 hours, we'll continue to add it eastward across those parts of the country. The northern plains gets a little bit with the warm front and that next system coming in out west. And we're going to add in the snowfall estimate map for the rest of the next 6 months probably. You can see the snowfall over the past 24 hours and the next 36 hours. Some areas get several inches in the higher elevations of the northern Rockies. There's the high temperatures today, still in the 90s from Kansas southward. We're looking at 70s, pretty pleasant across most of the Great Lakes in the northeast. And the chilly air is now out west with highs only in the 40s and 50s in some of those higher elevations. Lows tonight in the 40s, even in the lower elevations, so some of the higher elevations below freezing. 70s, though, pretty muggy from Missouri southward, and that heat continues tomorrow in those areas, but the chilly air starts to move into the northern plains as well. Here's the jet stream, and the reason for that is the trough coming into the northwest will kind of shift eastward, but it's not coming all the way. The ridge is definitely holding, it looks like, for the rest of this week and into the weekend, keeping things warm for most areas east of the Mississippi and chilly farther west. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Tacoma, Washington, first of all, cloudy, periods of rain today, high of 61 degrees. Waco, Texas, partly sunny, hot and humid, high of 95. In Erie, Pennsylvania, we'll see a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The afternoon high a pleasant 78.
All right, when we come back, our dairy report looks at updated price expectations from USDA plus cotton growers in southeast Texas. We're growing a crop of a lifetime until Hurricane Harvey stormed ashore. That story is still to come on Ag Day.
Visit farmjournalpro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. farmjournalpro.com.
The Dairy Report on Ag Day is brought to you by QLF. For 40 years, QLF has been proud to support American farmers that feed the world.
On the Dairy Report, USDA's latest supply-demand report calling for a slight increase in Class 3 milk, but lowering the price forecast for the all-milk price, the 2017 price dropping from $17.90 to $17.70 per hundred. The number crunchers also expecting milk production in 2017 to continue to rise. USDA says increases in milk per cow will more than offset a slowing pace of expansion. Now, on the good news front, feed costs expected to remain down in the near term. Both corn and beans seeing reductions, while bean meal prices were expected to average between $2.90 and $3.30 per short ton. On the consumer side of the business, whole fat dairy products seeing sales increase. USDA's Economic Research Service says since 2014, sales of whole milk have risen 10% and may be on track to surpass 2% sales this year. Given recent health studies, full-fat products continue to see increased sales across the board. However, as a whole, total fluid milk sales are falling. But flavored milks, as a subcategory, did see a slight uptick. And California continuing to move forward on a federal milk marketing order. The California Producer Review Board finalizing its quota recommendations last week. A new dairy quota program is needed if California dairy farmers vote to join the federal milk marketing order system. Currently, the California State Milk Order regulates both milk pricing and the quota program jointly. This separate quota regulation allows California to continue its quota program alongside that federal order. The proposal now headed for California's Secretary of Ag, with a producer referendum expected next month. As devastating as Hurricane Harvey was, it was quickly overshadowed by Irma. But that doesn't lessen the severe blow that Texas cotton growers felt and are still feeling. That story's next on In the Country.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Discover the power behind the M6 series at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
As we mentioned earlier in the show, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue will visit Southeast Texas later this week to survey damage left behind by the fury of Hurricane Harvey. What he'll see is the thousands of acres of bare stalks from cotton fields that did not get harvested before the storm made landfall. He'll also see firsthand bales and modules shredded by the wind and rain. In this video from the Texas Farm Bureau, we hear from a grower who had a crop of a lifetime before it was destroyed by a storm of a lifetime.
Like I've always told young ones, if you make money, save it. The bad one's coming. The yields were above normal. What we picked, some was over 3 and some 2 3/4. And I've had yields at that level, but not over basically every acre that's grown here. That was the big difference.
Talk to the farmers, they say this was the crop of a decade for them. That's really the crop that folks are going to make a profit on this year, right up until this happened.
1 week ahead, we were picking cotton as fast as we could.
We wanted to make sure to get all of that out of the field before it hit, so there was 24-hour long shifts going on through this area.
We buttoned down everything we could and left, went to LaGrange. We don't have flood issues here. They're saying we had a little less than 15 inches. I haven't figured out how you measure it when the wind's blowing 130 miles an hour, but that's what I was told.
It looked like a bomb went off. Cotton modules torn apart, buildings torn apart. The damage to the power lines, the infrastructure through here is pretty amazing. The eye wall passed through this area, which means we had the strongest winds, and as slow as that storm was moving, we had those winds for a long period of time.
I've got some fields that we didn't get to. They appear to be picked right now after this. I've got some modules totally destroyed in the field.
Crop was harvested before the storm hit, but we unfortunately are losing it now. The conventional modules, the large rectangular ones, many of those are heavily damaged. We lost the top off of that with the wind, and then we got a lot of rain on top of those modules, combined with water seeping up from the bottom. So I don't know how much we'll be able to gin in the end. I don't think we'll know that for a few weeks yet, but I don't think it'll be much.
You see a lot of the round bales, which in appearance look good, but depends on how wet they are. They may not be as good as they look.
Farming on the Gulf Coast, this is always a risk, and everyone knows that. You just hope it doesn't happen. Folks that are 30, 40 miles to the south have no problems whatsoever. You're just unlucky enough to be in the path of one of these storms. You just need to get out of there, save your family and what you can there, and come back and repair what we can after the fact.
And that's all the time we have this morning. I'm sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.